Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Bobcast for the week of April the 2nd. I'm Dan Wallace here with you. I'm joined first today on the Bobcast by head men's lacrosse coach Tommy Pearson. And, Coach, a pretty good week for your team all in all when you look at it from top to bottom. And we'll start with that first game against Mary Washington. It was an 8-7 loss, but it was an extremely competitive game on the road in a big conference match where you dropped it in overtime. Still, overall, you have to be pretty happy with what your team showed. You want to come away with the victory, but still a good showing from your boys.
A good showing on the defensive half of the field, I think. Offensively, I think when we hold a good offensive team to that many points, we'd like to score a couple more to come away with that one. So I think 8 turnovers from our first midfield line. You know, those guys really turned the ball over, and some silly moving picks and just hanging on to the ball too long. So that's for one midfield line to have 8 turnovers is really tough to overcome. But too many turnovers in the offensive end. It's been our story several games this year, unfortunately. But I think starting to get it. I think we showed some signs of that on Saturday, I hope.
Well, we'll get to that Saturday game here in a second, and a good showing from your team on Saturday to come back from a game that you did have control of on Thursday. You were up 5-3 at halftime, and it slipped away. But to bounce back on Saturday with a showing that your team had 16-3, the win over Marymount, a very, very good win, a win that your team, when you look at it, needed to have. But you got it from top to bottom, really, in all aspects. The offense was clicking in that game. Defensively, the team looked solid. Jack Marks was great in goal, and it allowed you to play some guys that don't see a ton of playing time and get them some real game action.
Right. Yeah, I would say statistically, the two statistics for me that were key in that game were not failing any turnovers and having such a low number of not failing any clears.
Yeah.
And having a low number of turnovers. You know, I mean, those are the things I think that have been haunting us all year. Is just some failed turnovers, some failed clears at bad times, and just, you know, our defense is playing pretty well, but sometimes our offense just makes them play too much defense with our turnovers. So our low turnovers and clearing the ball a whole lot, I think, were the two things that really kind of keyed our success on Saturday.
Well, and you mentioned it, the low turnovers, and the other thing that really wins a lot of lacrosse games is who wins the ground ball battle, and
Sure.
dominant in the ground balls in that game, 30-17 over Marymount. I mean, the team was dominant in every single facet, but that's got to be a good sign for your team going forward. When you can win the ground ball battle, you're going to win a lot of games.
Right, and I think you know, a lot of those ground balls obviously came from winning faceoffs, and you know, we played 4 faceoff guys on Saturday. You know, there's times where we think that, you know, Mike Thorne's really coming along in practice, and we were happy to give him an opportunity, and he played really well. And, you know, Sean Winans is you know, getting back into lacrosse. You know, he served in the military for a while, and he's come to school a little bit late, and he hasn't played high school lacrosse in a long time, so he's really starting to get back into it, and he's a big, strong guy, you know. So I think you know, we've got a tough decision moving forward. I'm trying to figure out who our top face-off guys are, which is a good problem to have, you know, especially when, you know, we thought Sam Natvig was going to be our top guy coming into the season, and it looks like he's going to, you know, file for a medical hardship waiver this year.
Yeah, 15-8 in those face-offs, so a very good day in the face-off circle for your team. And you and I talked about this a little bit in the post-game of that game, and you did get to play a ton of guys. You got to play everybody pretty much. I think actually everybody did see the field.
Everybody that's healthy, yes.
Everybody that's healthy saw the field in that game. You played 3 goalkeepers as well, and how vital is that in a game such as that, where you can get everybody into the game, everybody that doesn't get to play, and they get to see real live action rather than just the action in practice? How vital is that for your team going forward?
I mean, it's huge. You ask a lot of your guys that are your look guys in practice. You know, you look man down is you know, look man down, look man up. You know, just, you know, trying to really show the coaching staff that you're comfortable with our defense, but you also have to, you know, give us a look for other defenses. So, you know, mentally, I think it might be a little bit tougher to be a look guy sometimes, not being able to just focus on kind of doing what we do. So we ask a lot of those guys, you know, and then, you know, we play a really tough non-conference schedule, and we're in one of the best conferences in Division III lacrosse. So those opportunities aren't abundant, you know what I mean? So there's times where, you know, we come out and, you know, we win a game that maybe I think we should win, but we don't win it by as many as I'd like to. And I think sometimes we waste an opportunity to give those guys the opportunity to play. And I come down pretty hard on our top guys when I think that they didn't play well enough to give the guys that are you know, giving them great looks in practice the opportunity. So, you know, I'm always happy to be able to do that. And then, like I said, especially we kept scoring goals and we kept playing good defense, and our backup goalies made saves. So, when those guys get the opportunity and they don't do well, then I'm a little frustrated with them. But I think it was one of those days where they got out there and they made the most of their opportunity. So it was good for everybody.
Well, and I think the other nice thing to see is the unity that is on this team. You could see late in the game all of the starters, all of the consistent players, how excited they were getting for the guys that were making great defensive plays, for the guys that were scoring goals that don't get in there. I mean, that's just got to be a nice thing to see as a coach, that these guys have such a camaraderie that they're supportive of each other from top to bottom, whether they play all the time or whether they don't.
Yeah, and Jordan Edwards, we just moved him to offensive midi just a couple weeks ago. He's been a D midi, and he got in there, made a great move, and took a great shot. So that was I know that was one of the highlights for the sideline. Those guys were pretty pumped to see that.
Well, now we've started to really get into the thick of conference play at this point in the season. Right now, your team's sitting at 1-2 through 3 conference games. In lacrosse, a little bit different than some of the other sports. Only 9 teams in the conference, so you only get the 8 conference games instead of the full slate of 9. So you get the 5 games left, and really at this point, it's got to be you're getting to the point in the season where we got to have these wins. We're in an extremely tough conference. A couple games coming up. One coming up later this week against a team that you think you got to have the win if you want to make the postseason. It's getting to that point in one of the deepest conferences in the country where you got to have these wins.
Right. We kind of say that our conference schedule is a playoff schedule. We're every game right now is a playoff game. I think that obviously when you're in a playoff game, it's kind of one and done. But some of our conference games now are must-wins to get into postseason play. So we've kind of talked about that and looked at the rest of our schedule and how we want to go about it. And I think a game on Wednesday, Elizabethtown is a really good defensive team. They played Christopher Newport closer than we did, and they've played some teams pretty tough. Their score with F&M was pretty similar to ours, so I think we've definitely got a pretty good opportunity on Wednesday to prove that we've been improving over the course of the season is the plan, so that when we go into some of these later games, we're feeling a little bit more confident and buying into our offense and our defense. I think has really been playing great lately.
And you mentioned it, another non-conference opportunity, and it is really your last non-conference opportunity, but you've played a lot of good non-conference competition. Elizabethtown will be the last one. Brockport, Messiah, Cabrini, McDaniel, Washington College, Lebanon Valley, from top to bottom. You look at your non-conference schedule. You schedule it very difficult intentionally, being that it's a difficult conference, and hopefully, I mean, another win against Elizabethtown should put you in hopefully a good position where maybe you could sneak in as an at-large bid if you don't win the conference, or at least put you in a better position to do so.
Sure, it definitely help our. I think they won their conference last year, so they were an NCAA tournament team last year. If they go on to win their conference again and beat some pretty good teams in their conference, then that would certainly look good for us. I think we have to have a couple big wins maybe in our conference season to definitely improve our Pool C resume, but. Everything's on the table as long as we make the playoffs. So we think we're getting better the last couple of weeks, and hope it really helps us at the end of the year.
Well, you have a couple of those big opportunities coming up later in the season when you take on York and Salisbury, but the focus this week in conference is Wesley. Wesley coming, or you're heading to Wesley on Saturday for a 1:00 start in Dover, Delaware, and I think you'd have to imagine that this is a game that is a must-win situation for your team to solidify your start to solidify your postseason positioning. And what can you tell us heading into that game against the Wolverines?
Honestly, we're with Easter. I gave the staff the day off yesterday, and we don't play till 7 on Wednesday, so we've been hitting the film pretty hard, and I think we'll probably start looking at that. When we get done practice on Tuesday, there's not a whole lot we can do to prepare for Wednesday night's game, so the staff will really start. We'll have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to really get into the Wesley film and make a plan there. But like you said, every conference game is at this point kind of we're looking at it like a playoff game. We got to win these.
All right. Well, Tommy Pierce, thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning, and good luck in your pair of games this week. Hopefully we talk to you next week after a couple wins. I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head women's lacrosse coach Haley Ware, and coach, just really a short week for your team this week. Only the one game, and it was a tough one down at Marymount down in Arlington, Virginia, a 17-6 loss. Not really much to take out of this one. 2 more goals for Morgan Cavey as she just continues to climb the ranks here at Frostburg in goal scoring. Now 36 of them on the season. Her sister Summer, a pair of goals as well, and Molly Biggers and Lindsay Coleman each picking up 1 goal. But the real issue maybe in that game was the 17 goals on the opposite side. What was really the struggles that your team saw with the Marymount offense on the defensive side?
I think a couple things. We decided they have a girl, Abby Westcott, number 26, who is phenomenal, and she's always makes a team for CAC, and she leads and assists, and she just is an all-around good player. And so we spent a lot of time prepping to lock her off the entire game. So
Mm-hmm.
Sam Cataldo, her sole job the entire game was to lock off her, and she did a great job. I mean, she was no assists, no scores until the last minute and a half of the game. So for us, that was like a huge takeaway on defense. And I think the rest of it, which we knew, and we kind of warned the team that when you take someone that is that good out of the game, that other people will step up. And
Mm-hmm.
so number 8 and number 10 really did. Make a valiant effort, and really it showed on the field. And I think our defense, it was just kind of how do we react to that. And when the ball is played mostly in our defensive end the entire time, your team gets tired, and I think a lot of factors just went into it to end up with that score.
I think well, this happened a while ago, but we'll call it one good takeaway from the past couple weeks is Morgan has continued to light it up. I already mentioned her 36 goals now on the season, and a huge milestone for her. A couple weeks back, she hit the 100 goal plateau, and she's just been absolutely phenomenal for you. Only still a junior. Oh, still with a full another year to go, and she has plenty of time to climb those ranks here at Frostburg. I mean, there's a good chance she may be very well in the top 10 or even higher by the time she finishes in goals scored in her career here at Frostburg.
Yeah, Morgan is a phenomenal player. I think she's stepped up all over the field, and not just on our attacking end, but in leadership roles. And even this game, we were suffering on the draw. I pulled her from attack to play midfield for us, and she did it without hesitation, and she scored off of her goal while she was playing midfield. So I think that she just has so many talents that we try to utilize in her to get her to be all over. But again, she can't do everything herself, and she needs some backup there. So I'm impressed with where she's been so far, and I think she has a lot of room to grow still with a couple of these games left this year, and then her whole senior year next year. I think she just is, the ceiling's limitless for her.
Before we get into the two games that you have this upcoming week, you have a pair of conference games at home against Mary Washington and Wesley. We're now into the thick of conference play. Right now, your team 0-2 in the conference, and women's lacrosse is a little bit different than some of the other sports. Only the 9 teams in the conference, so it's only 8 conference games instead of the full 9. And going down 0-2 causes some problems. It causes you to have to dig yourself out of a hole with only 6 games left to play when you have teams like Salisbury, Mary Wash that are already 3-0 in the conference. Looking at it from a coach's standpoint, what does your team have to do to dig themselves out of this 0-2 hole that they've created, knowing that you have the 6 conference games left?
I think just what you said is really is digging out of a hole. We've made that very clear from the beginning. Our conference is extremely
Mm-hmm.
tough, and we knew that, and our team has known that, and so each win really does matter. And so I think we have to take it game by game and really dig into it and do our best and hope for the best each game that we go into, that we can really pull out a couple wins here in the next 6 games that we have.
So far, it's kind of been a top-heavy CAC and a bottom-heavy CAC. It's been 4 teams that have 2 or more wins and no losses, and 4 teams that have 2 or more losses and no wins, and you get kind of a mix this week of those teams. You start with Mary Washington, one of those teams that is 2-0 already in the conference on Wednesday at Bobcat Stadium, and we all know Salisbury is the class of the CAC. Them and York are the two that are considered to be at the top every single year. But Mary Washington is no slouch either, as we've seen so far this season. What can you tell us about the Mary Washington Eagles, and what does your team have to do to be ready for this team coming into Bobcat Stadium on Wednesday?
Mary Wash is doing so well this year, and over the past couple of years, they've really bumped up with how they have improved in the CAC, and they're such a good contender. And to be in the top 10 and top 20 all the time, every week, it's huge. So for us, for my opinion, I think that's exciting that we get to play against some of these teams. And if you can hang with some of these teams and then keep this game close, I think that that's just so exciting for your program to see. Frostburg has kind of been in the middle towards the bottom of this conference since as long as I can remember, and that's part of why I came here. Was it was exciting to see how we could kind of climb the scales in that way. And so we've made a big deal about that for the past 3 years, about really not being complacent in where we are and going into each game knowing that every day is something new and you never know who can come out on top. And so, yes, it's a tough bridge to kind of cross here on Wednesday when they come here, but they are coming here to our home stadium. And I think having the pride here and the weather is always a help because it's so crazy and we never know what we're going to get. But sometimes that throws teams off. And so I think there's just a lot of factors that could go into it. It's just who shows up that day.
Well, and I think right now we're looking at a bit of a chill and some more rain coming on Wednesday. So try to use that to your advantage if you can. If you can. The other game this week is against Wesley, and Wesley right now one of those teams that's 0-2. That game coming up on Saturday, and I think there's with a CAC that allows only a select number of teams in, you don't get the full 9-team field in like you would in some conferences. This is one of those games that you really look at and say, if we want to make the Capital Athletic Conference playoffs, this is one of those games we have to have. This is one of those games we have to win, along with a couple other ones when you look at it later in the season. But this is really where it really starts, I think, a stretch of about 4 games where you look at and say, we need these games to get into the playoffs.
So every team in the CAC, regardless top or bottom, I think is a huge contender for getting that win in and really trying to play our best. And so I think that even if, regardless of the score, it prepares us for the next game on top of that. So I think that it is a must. I go into every game telling the team that it's a must. I think that we're behind now and that we, just like we just said, we need to climb our way out of this hole. And I think that each game really does matter. And so Wednesday and Sunday are huge for us. And we are lucky that they're both home and that we can kind of stay here and not have to travel and we can get a few more practices in, and hopefully that will help.
Well, the other thing to look at with your schedule is you get a bit of a quirk in the schedule because you get 2 straight home games, which you haven't had in a while, but then right back on the road for 3 again. I mean, what are the struggles knowing that, you get these 2 games at home. These are your 2 games where you need to get a good result. You get the home field advantage because you have to go back out and play 3 teams, 2 of which you think you should probably win on the road and have to come away from the confines, do the whole road trip, all the bus rides, the long bus rides down to Southern Virginia and St. Mary's, not easy bus rides. I mean, it's got to be hard knowing that you have that road trip coming up as well, that you really, really need these 2 wins.
It is tough, mostly I think for us more than the team. I think that they go into each game, they're just as excited on the bus with music playing as they are in the locker room with music playing. So I don't think that really, but I think that we're used to traveling. We are a far school compared to a lot of other ones in our conference, and so I feel like the time travel of what we do and when we actually leave for these games that are away, I think our team has been pretty used to, and it's not very shocking to travel 4 hours or 5 hours depending. So St. Mary's will do an overnight before, which is helpful to kind of get some time there and hopefully prepare for the game on Saturday. And Southern Virginia is a tough one because it is during the week and we have to travel, but every team does. So we take that as a factor that we can't affect, and we need to just head there and play our game.
Well, 2 more big ones coming up this week. On Wednesday, Mary Washington, Wesley on Sunday. That'll be a noon start at Bobcat Stadium. Haley Ware, thanks for joining us. Good luck this week. I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head track and field coach Dale Louie. Coach, I'd say a pretty good week for your teams overall. It looked like you were in Susquehanna at the Jim Taylor Invitational, and it looked to be a pretty deep field from top to bottom. So not a lot of top 10 finishes in a lot of events, not a lot of top 5 finishes, but still all in all, 5 ECAC marks hit on the men's side, 6 ECAC marks hit on the women's side. It still overall was a pretty good week for your teams.
People competed. For the most part, we showed some progress, and that's, what we want to see week to week. You're right, the competition was pretty good. We're 2 D1 schools there that, brought the most people they've ever brought to that meet. Another D2 school in there and stuff. So, that's good, because it's nice to win, but, ultimately you're going to try to get better for the end of the year. And so you need competition at, week after week, and we had it there, so that was good. We had a nice day. They have beautiful facilities and things, and very fast track, so those things showed up with some of the times.
I think let's start with the men's side first, and I think the big takeaway from the weekend was what first-year Jacob Terry did, hitting 2 ECAC marks in that event, one in the 110-meter hurdles, the 400-meter hurdles. It seems like here in his first year at Frostburg, he's really come in and taken that event and made it his own.
Yeah, he has a lot of potential there. He seems to be getting a little bit better most weeks, and we just really need to get him to learn the importance, like most people come out of high school. The collegiate level, you can't run your way into shape.
No.
You better be practicing hard, and so that's a work in progress on that side. But he shows a lot of talent there. In general, our hurdlers are making some progress there. And, that's pretty significant since the weather hasn't been very cooperative on that side.
I think the other takeaway from the track event, Shamar Nelson hitting an ECAC mark again in the 100-meter dash, and only a junior. Shamar still has a very big upside with a full another year to go here at Frostburg, but already hitting the ECAC marks, 11.22 seconds in the 100-meter dash. He's gotten a lot better from where he originally started here at Frostburg.
Yeah, this was his first outdoor meet. We kept him out the week before because he had gotten hurt there in the finals of the 60 at the indoor ECAC championships, and so we were a little bit cautious with him there. And he's worked hard to rehab. He's come back a lot faster than we really thought he was going to. Probably he's probably surprised himself a little bit there. Hopefully here, if the weather cooperates this week, we can move him back into his primary event, the long jump.
2 more ECAC marks hit in the hammer throw as well, and I think that's kind of become in the field event, on the men's side, your deepest event with John Kearns hitting an ECAC mark, and then Michael Harley also hitting an ECAC mark in the hammer, and those two, especially John, we've talked about him time and time again from the indoor season, and now just picking it right back up in the outdoor with the hammer throw. 2 more ECAC marks and great showings from those two to really get you some points in the field events as well.
Yeah, we did well in the hammer, and we had some nice performances over there in the javelin. Their facility over there is kind of conducive to good throws and everything. Mike Harley has always been, I guess you might say, diamond in a rough. When Coach Kendall was here, he was the one guy that a lot of coaches would come up to and say, hey, this guy could be really good. And so I think he's starting to put that together a little bit, and that's good because then that helps to push John a little bit. And we got Mace Whetstone in there that's showing some real progress there as well. So our hallmark in the throws has been depth, and we've been a little weak on that this year so far. So that's an area that we continue to need to work on, and I think we made a little progress this week.
On the other side, the women's team, 6 ECAC marks hit, and I think it all starts with the 4x400 meter relay. You've put together a phenomenal team there that can really get you wins almost every single week. You'd have to think the team of Truesdale, Estrada, Watson, and Reason this week hitting the ECAC mark at just over 4 minutes. What makes the combination of those 4 such a potent group together?
We're pretty. We have the benefit of some deep quality over there, and Destiny Logan did not run, and she's been really she's been our number 1 400 person because Kayla typically runs the shorter sprints and things, and we actually had some people out this week because of some nagging injuries, and Destiny was one of them. So Gabby Reason stepped in, and we shuffled the order around for training purposes, and Gabby was on the end and did a very nice job bringing the baton home.
3 of those 4 also hit individual ECAC marks as well. Kayla hit an individual mark in the 400, as did Maddie Watson, and then Kayleen Estrada as well hit an ECAC mark in the triple jump. Those 3 seem so far, especially Kayla, we talk about her time and time again. She was just at Nationals for indoor. It's hard not to talk about her and all the accolades that she's gotten since she's been here. Estrada, though, seems to be somebody who, from her first year, now in her sophomore season at Frostburg, has really improved leaps and bounds, is doing well in the jumping events, is doing well in the relays, and she seems like somebody who has a lot of versatility and can provide you with a lot of different aspects for your team for this year and 2 more years to come.
She does. I mean, she's certainly probably right now the most versatile female athlete we have. Our challenge as coaches and for her as an athlete is, what are we doing this week, to try to prepare for the end of the season. And it's a little bit of a challenge. She's grown a lot in a lot of different ways, and that's really one of the reasons that she's become more consistent. I think she recognizes that there's a lot of things that she can do better technique-wise in all of her events. She's grown in the idea that a lot of them, and she's not alone in this, a lot of them they're too worried about the next event, and it's like focus on the one you're doing right now. Don't be thinking about what's going to happen or what did happen. You've got an event right in front of you, and that's your focus. And she's doing a much better job with that, as are a couple of our other athletes this year. So if they continue to grow in that way, we'll get better as a team.
We go to the field events and 2 more ECAC marks, and it's really the 2 athletes who have kind of led the way in the throwing events for you. Zoe Harris hitting an ECAC mark in the javelin, and Holly Van Wee hitting an ECAC mark in the hammer throw. Those 2 have really been your most consistent athletes from top to bottom when you look at it at the throwing events.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully they'll continue to improve. We like to see both of them do well in multiple events. Zoe has come on pretty nicely in the shot in addition to her primary event there, the javelin. Big improvement this week from the week before. Part of that's a better place to throw this past week. Very good competition she had. She stepped up pretty nicely in the shot put too. So hopefully she'll continue to work on things. Technique wise, she's solid, but there again, she recognizes that there are some things that she needs to tweak to get better. And Holly's, Holly has been very, very strong in the hammer for us this year. Struggling a little bit in the shot. Hopefully we can get that going as well.
Now we get to this week, and we know there's a whole big question mark, and that, of course, leads us to the first question about this week. We have the Bobcat Invitational here at Frostburg this weekend, but the question is, are we going to have the Bobcat Invitational this weekend with the weather? I mean, we get more snow last night. We have all sorts of rain being called for. The weather's supposed to warm up and then drop back down in the temperature down into the low 40s, high 30s again by the end of the week. I mean, your outlook, looking at it, you're the host for this event. What does the outlook look like for the event coming up this weekend?
Questionable.
I think that's probably the best answer I could have gotten.
Yeah, we'll have to make a call at some point, and in fairness to the other schools, we'll make that early enough so perhaps they have a chance to reschedule, go somewhere else, if that's possible or if they want to do that. You've got the weather forecast down pat there. Hopefully that forecast improves a little bit as the week goes on. We'll just have to see. The athletes do like being at home. It's the only time we're at home. It's just kind of the nature of our sport and in our facility, and so it's kind of an important meet, and that's one of the reasons why we'll probably drag our heels a little bit in terms of how soon we make that decision. But we also want to be good hosts too, and make the right decision for the athletes.
Well, what can you tell us, should this event happen this Saturday? What can you tell us about the competition that will be here?
Well, we have I think the answer to that question, you almost need to look kind of at the schools that are coming. Montgomery College is coming, and they look to be pretty solid on the sprint side and the women's side of things. Juniata College is pretty balanced on their men's and women's squad. Although if you'd have to point to an area where they're strongest, you might probably say distance for them. Hood's coming. Got some really good athletes in a couple of different events. Got some new people. It'll be kind of interesting to see what those folks do. We have some distance runners coming from some other schools, some smaller programs that I think will enhance the quality of the meet significantly. And usually we end up with some unattached athletes, including some alums, who have very much helped fill out our fields, and they bring some quality to the meet. So that's one of the things that we like. Our alums like to see how many of the present people they can beat, and we've got some alums who continue to train pretty well, and they actually have continue to get better in some events, and a little bit of trash talk in there at times.
Well, Coach, hopefully you get to have the meet here at Frostburg this Saturday. Hopefully it doesn't get postponed or canceled in any sort of way, and if you do, best of luck to you, best of luck to your athletes, and thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week.
Okay, thank you.
I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head tennis coach Aaron Wilf, and you got to feel good this week, Coach. 2 wins, 1 match. That was it. 1 match for the men, 1 match for the women against Hood College on Saturday. But you get a pair of wins: 8-1 for the men, 5-4 for the women. And we were talking about it right before we started. The best feeling for the men has to be the fact that this is a team that beat you 9-0 last year, and now you turn it around and make it 8-1. What an improvement from a year ago.
Yeah, it was a great performance, I thought, this weekend from the men's team. Like you said, 9-0 loss last year to Hood at their place. Got them at our place this year. Felt really good from the first ball that was hit. Guys came out early, looked really good in warm-ups. We had a great week of practice this week. I think that's really what I attribute this win to, was 5 really good days of practice leading up to the match. The guys were hungry. They really wanted this win, and like you said, came out and really flipped the script on them and got a really nice 8-1 win.
And your top 2 on both singles and doubles this week. Shasta, of course, he has been dominant in almost every match that he's been in, 6-2, 6-3, his wins this week. And then Nolan Jones, who's a newcomer to the team this year, 6-3, 6-4, his wins. And then they combined for an 8-0 victory on the doubles side of things. These two have been phenomenal for you so far this season and just continue to show what they're capable of against Hood this week.
Yeah, really strong at the top of the lineup. Shasta did his thing. Shasta lost to Alex Sexton 6-0, 6-2 last year. So even individually, Shasta turned it around, got a nice 6-2, 6-3 victory at number 1 singles. Nolan's been solid for us. He had a nice 6-3, 6-4 win at number 2 singles. And like you said, those guys teaming up together, I guess they like playing doubles with each other, because it was a really nice 8-0 win for those two. And saw a lot of strength at the top of our lineup against Hood.
And you got to. The fact that it was the 8-0 is what is really impressive. The 8-0 on the doubles side, you're going up against their number 1 doubles pairing in Alex Sexton and Michael Brady, and to come away with that 8-0 victory is doubles something that in practice, when you look at it, 3 wins on the doubles side this week. Is that something that you've really been stressing in practice and trying to pick up a lot of points both on the men's and the women's side in the doubles competitions?
Doubles is huge. Doubles is the first that's played. I mean, you play doubles before singles, so it really sets the tone, I think, for the rest of the match. If you can go out and you can steal 2 of the 3 doubles, it sets you up for a very good rest of the match, I think, if you can get up 2-1. So obviously we went up 3-0. Never going to complain about that, taking a 3-0 lead into the singles. But, not just at the top. I thought everyone played well. This was the first time we had Nate Farlow and Chad O'Neill playing together. They played number 2 doubles. They were very, very good, very impressive for their first time out. And then Joey Cox, Derek Thompson at 3. They've just been solid for us all year. Love what we get out of them at 3 doubles. Taking that 3-0 lead into singles is definitely a great feeling. But yeah, it is something that we stress in practice. We do work a ton on doubles, and it always sets a really good tone for us moving forward into the singles.
On the other side, the women getting a 5-4 win, just squeaking one out against Hood. Your girls split 3-3 in the singles competition, and you go 2 out of 3 in the doubles competition, with Kate Paler and Jenna Lipinski leading the way in the doubles. And again, a nice win, just squeaking by, but you had to have seen some improvement from top to bottom this week as well on the women's side.
Yeah, it was a good 5-4 win for the ladies. Like you said, Kate and Jenna looked really solid again at number one doubles. Got a pretty impressive win. Number two, we had Sammy Turner, Elizabeth Mott. They had a tough one, but yeah, overall it was a solid win. It was a great team win. Everyone played well. And that's just what we want to see. We've been on the other end of these 5-4 matches. We've been on the short end of the 5-4 matches. So really good to turn that around and be on the winning side of a 5-4 match.
One match that I want to look at in particular is at number 3 singles with Allison Paul. She dropped the first set 6-1, then she comes back and wins the second set 6-3, and ends up in a big tiebreaker that ends up going 11-9. And how stressful is that? Can that be on a player to go that deep into a tiebreak and eventually come away with the win? It's a very, very nice win for Allison Paul, but taxing the player a lot to go that deep into the tiebreak.
Yeah, it was a good match. I think anytime you drop the first set, it's a challenge. It's an uphill battle to try to come back and pull out the win. But she did just that. But I mean, it really wasn't just her. I mean, if you look at the score line, I mean, Jenna at number 2 had a super tiebreaker in her match.
Mm-hmm.
We had Sammy had a super tiebreaker at 4. So I mean, we had 3 matches in the singles that all went down to the wire. But yeah, Allison's match. Give her credit. She was actually up 9-4 in the super tiebreaker, dropped the next 5 points, so it was 9-all, and then squeaked out the next 2 to win 11-9, which ended up clinching the win for us. So yeah, definitely a roller coaster up and down. It was a battle. It was a fight, but just really proud of her. Happy that we were able to squeak out the victory.
So now something a little bit different with your team happening now, as the tennis courts here at Frostburg are being redone. They're being torn up as we speak through the snow, being remodeled, and the question, I guess, comes to, what does that mean for your team for the rest of this year? Because those courts are not going to be done. How do you get through the practices? What do you do? Is there anything different? Do you go somewhere else? Do you practice inside? How are you going to handle the rest of this season without any outdoor tennis courts at Frostburg?
Great question. Great question. First of all, we are so excited. We're very grateful to the school, to the athletic department for all their work that they're going to be doing on our tennis courts. It's really a great thing for our school, for future recruits coming in. We could not be more excited. Yes, it presents a challenge for us right now as we move forward in the month of April and kind of the meat and potatoes part of our conference schedule. So yeah, we're still going to utilize, I think, our gym, our main gym arena, a little bit for indoor practices. In terms of outdoor practices, we're actually going to be splitting up our team. Our men are going to be going to Constitution Park in Cumberland. They're going to be having practices at that facility. The women are going to be going to the LaVale Swim Club, and they're going to be having practices there. We're going to have to split the coaches up a little bit. Both practices were slated for 5 o'clock, 5:15 start times. So, yeah, we have the men in one location, the women in the other location. It's going to be quite a challenge. Our matches are going to be played at some of the local high schools. We have one match that's going to be at Fort Hill High School. The majority of our matches this month are going to be at Mountain Ridge High School right up the street. So, yeah, right now we're practicing 2 different places. We have matches at a couple different places, but obviously it's what we have to do with the new courts being worked on, and it's like I said, it's going to be a challenge, but everyone is on board. We all know the schedule, we all know the drill, and we're just going to take it one day at a time and do what we have to do, keep getting better.
Well, I mean, you maybe take a little bit of a hit now to maybe be better in the future with this sort of situation, because you got to think it's getting these new tennis courts. It's going to be a very, very nice selling point when you go out recruiting for players in the future.
Like I said earlier, it is huge for us being able to talk to high school student athletes and say, hey, this is what we have going on. We're going to have a brand new lighted 6-court tennis facility in the heart of our campus. It's just so significant for us moving forward. And again, we just really appreciate the school backing us and being behind us. We're just so grateful that this is happening right now in Frostburg State. And yeah, it's going to be a busy month of April, traveling and kind of playing at different places, but it's all going to be worth it come August when we get out there and we have this new facility, and we're just counting down the days until we see the finished product.
Well, that traveling to play your home matches starts this week. The men get 2 home matches this week, first off against Mary Washington, and then both the men and the women take on St. Mary's on Saturday. Let's start with that match on Wednesday for the men against Mary Washington. First off, for the people that are listening, where exactly is that one going to be? And secondly, what do you know about this Mary Washington team coming to Frostburg?
This match will be at Fort Hill High School. It's going to be 4 o'clock this coming Wednesday. Very excited about that. We actually have a few players on our men's team that played at Fort Hill High School, so I guess it'll be fun for them to kind of go
homecoming.
back. Sure, get some home cooking down there and get to play on their old high school courts. I don't know a whole lot about this Mary Washington team. Obviously saw them last year a little bit. I believe they are currently in the top 20 in the country. I know their men's team is ranked very, very highly at the top of the standings, I believe, also in the CAC conference. So we expect a battle. We know that they're very good. They're very talented. Obviously, one of the national powerhouses right now. So we don't feel like there's any pressure on us. We're going to go out. We're going to have fun. We're going to give our A game. And, hopefully we can squeak out a couple individual wins against them.
And then Saturday it is St. Mary's, and again, where will that one be taking place, and what do you know about St. Mary's coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, St. Mary's, it's going to be at Mountain Ridge High School, about a mile from campus, so it's not going to be too far. Solid team, very, very well coached. We were very impressed with them last year down at their place. Just a very disciplined team, very consistent. So, I really think we're going to have to try to take it to them. I think we're going to have to start strong in the doubles, try to steal 2 of the 3, and then really just try to be as consistent as we can in the singles. Not worry too much about what they're doing, but just worry about our strengths, playing to our strengths, doing what we need to do to be successful. I think it's going to be a good match. Hopefully it's a very close match. And like I said, we just want to go out there and play our best tennis and let the chips fall.
Well, Aaron, Will, fantastic as always. Thanks for joining us, and good luck to you and your teams coming up this week. I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head baseball coach Guy Robertson, and we've had nothing really, Guy, this year to talk about, but good things for this baseball team from top to bottom for really the majority of the season. This week, though, a bit of a rough patch. It took 1 out of 4 games, 1-3 the record overall this week, and we start with first the game at Marietta on Monday, and it was a difficult game. It was a ranked opponent. 21 in the country was Marietta at the time, but a tough road trip and a 10-1 loss. Greg Schneider got hit around a little bit, something that you don't see very much. He walked quite a few guys. Overall, it was a rough showing.
Yeah, it sure was. It wasn't exactly what we expected to get when we went out there. Things did get bumped around a little bit. You move it up a day, and that seems to be our forte here is moving things around.
Yeah.
But we just didn't play very well. We didn't come out of the chute, walked the first guy, I think, on 4 pitches, and that kind of set the tone for the day. And unfortunately, we weren't able to rebound from that. Mm-hmm. We did some good things. We faced a really good arm on their end, a guy that's a 4-year guy for them and thrown a ton of innings for them in big spots, and sidearm guy that was tough and took us a little bit to get adjusted. We actually probably hit the ball better than the box score showed. We made a lot of hard outs. Just balls went right at people or guys made some plays, but that's baseball. Again, you look at the walks on our end, which was uncharacteristic for Greg. Had a little bit of trouble adjusting to the mound. The mound was a weird-shaped mound out there compared to some of the other ones he's thrown off of. But really, I mean, their guy threw off it. Obviously, they get that advantage, but it is what it is. We just didn't get the performance that we'd hoped for out of our best guy on the mound, and just carried over into the rest of the game. We just couldn't combat it offensively with the guy that they threw. It happens. It's baseball, and it was another tough opponent where we face a ranked team, and I think we're undefeated against ranked teams leading up to that. But when you face good clubs, those things are going to happen. When you play a good ball game, honestly, I don't think it was as bad as the score dictated. But we didn't make enough plays, and they did, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. So
then you get a bounce-back game in your next outing when you take on Southern Virginia, a game that was 5-5 at the end of regulation, and it went to extra innings, 11 innings. You get the 8-5 victory in that one. Only 5 runs through the first 9 innings for the offense, but Daniel Richardson did give you a good start for the pitching side of things. 6 innings he threw, only allowing 4 runs, 3 only of them were earned, 7 strikeouts, so a good start for him, and really a needed bounce-back start for your team overall to get the win for conference play.
For sure. Facing a Southern Virginia team that hasn't been very talented over the last couple of years, if you look at the ball club that we faced on Thursday, it was a totally different ball club than what they've had in the past. They had a lot of guys that have come back from missionary work and stuff, and some older guys. So they had 3 or 4 new guys in the lineup that were very talented, could do some things with the bat, and it showed. It showed.
Yeah.
But we definitely got the start that we needed. And really, we were in control of the ball game for quite some time. We scored run. We were down 1-0. We come back and take a 2-1 lead, and we tack on. I think at one point it was 5-1. We get a comebacker. Dan falls down, make a mistake on the throw, trying to get back up, and that led to 2 runs right there. Now we were fortunate; it only was 2, so I was glad for that. And then obviously they keep coming. We actually got out of a situation where I think we had bases loaded and 1 out in the 7th inning, with Livingston on the mound, and they don't score to keep it a 5-4 lead. And then they get the 1 in the 9th where, really that could have been a lot worse as well. I think we made a diving play at first base with 2 outs, a ball that's headed for right field with the go-ahead, the winning run on second base. Pat Bosley dives, catches the ball, and we hold on and we go into extras. And then, Livingston really threw well. I mean, Mike did a tremendous job. Both guys did. And then we were able to get to the 11th there, and we were able to get a run, and then Tack hits a ground rule double to get us a second run, and then we try to do a little first and third play, and we get a third run, and we were just glad to get the lead and try to have the chance to win it in the bottom of the 11th, and then to be up 8-5 was just icing on the cake. They made a little bit of a run there. They actually the first 2 outs of that inning were hit pretty hard. They just happened to go right at 2 of our guys, which was nice. And then they got a base hit, and then they actually hit the ball right back to Livingston for the last out of the game, which wasn't hit poorly, but he's a good defensive player once he releases the ball. So easy play to end it in a much, much needed win. We swung the bats really well, played good defense. It was really a nice all-around performance, to be perfectly honest with you, and something that we desperately needed. Can't imagine right now being 0-4 in the league. So even if we didn't play very well against Marymount, we didn't play very well against Salisbury, which we're going to get to here in a second, but it was a huge burden off our back just to get to get that first win and get to 1-1. The guys really played well, and they really responded. I mean, continuing to go on the road and having to hoe that route that we seem to be on here, getting a victory in the conference and trying to get. I think we were on a 2 or 3 game. I guess it was a 2-game losing streak, but it seemed like even though we beat Gallaudet, it felt like you lost because we just played so poorly. But that was a huge pick-me-up. And unfortunately, it didn't have the desired carryover into Saturday against Salisbury that we'd hoped for. But Southern Virginia was a nice step in the right direction and something I hope that we can kind of stay focused on as far as what we need to do in the conference play, because it was a much improved Southern Virginia team. It wasn't as if, it was the same team that we played in the past where, we just squeaked by barely and we didn't do enough. I mean, they're very talented as well.
And now we do get to the Salisbury matchup that you mentioned already, a doubleheader on Saturday, a 14-4 loss and a 12-5 loss, and I don't think when you look at it, the score really tells the entire story of it. You out-hit Salisbury in the 12-5 game. You had 8 hits still in the 14-4 game. I think what the real storyline is in this game is a few errors here and there cost you, and hits from Salisbury in critical situations where you didn't get the hits when needed.
No question. Really, right out of the chute, we have first and second, nobody out. We try to steal third. They get a strike them out, throw them out, and now there's 2 outs and a man on second, and we don't score in the top of the first inning of the first game. And I think that gave them some momentum. We were trying to jump quick there and take advantage of the situation that I felt like we could have, and we just didn't. And unfortunately, that kind of gave them some desired momentum or undesired on our end. And it led to some things, but Logan pitched really well. Look, we get a comebacker to the mound where he spins around and slips and falls down and ends up being a base run on a mistake. And then we get 2 outs and we get 2 strikes and we throw a breaking ball that gets through our catcher's legs and ends up being a run. And right there was the start, was kind of the beginning of the end. And it was 2 focused plays that we didn't make. And that was a problem. And then we get a little bit later on in that game, I think it was a 6-1 ball game or 5-1 ball game, and we drop a routine fly ball in left field. And that ends up leading to 3 unearned runs again with 2 outs. And now all of a sudden that ball game is totally different, and the wind's completely out of your sails. So any chance that you had to come back is just erased by poor mistakes on our part. It wasn't anything that Salisbury did in that first game. It was just, hey, a couple of mistakes that we're very capable of making. And I don't want to make excuses. I mean, there are none. We are very capable of making those plays, and we made them against Southern Virginia on Thursday. And I think that was kind of what was the most disappointing. But there were just some focus plays. It wasn't the lack of ability plays. Yeah. So, or Salisbury dictating. So that was very frustrating, and took away what otherwise was a really good start out of Logan. And then, we just didn't get it done coming out of the bullpen. But one of those plays is a drop fly ball, and who knows what happens. But anyway, it was disappointing that standpoint. And, the same thing happened in the bottom of the first game. And we strike out the first guy that we faced to start the game. And we walk a few guys, and we end up with the bases loaded and 2 outs. And we drop a tougher fly ball in right field, but a play that's got to be made. And that leads to 4 unearned runs. And, right there you feel like, you're just punched in the gut. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, like you said, I mean, we out-hit them and we made it a little bit closer. But if we make that play, the game's totally different in the second game. Brady's able to get much deeper into the ball game. And hopefully, and he walked 6, which was uncharacteristic of him to this point. So it was one of those things where the drop fly ball just puts you in a wrong frame of mind. Yeah. And we just didn't recover from it until kind of later on in the game, where we started to put some pressure on them and do some things. It was 12-5 with the bases loaded, and if somehow you get a double or you bump into one, and now all of a sudden it's 12-7 or 12-9, mm-hmm. and now all of a sudden things feel a little bit different.
Well, and I think that the unearned runs was the story. It's 26 runs given up between the 2 games, but 12 of those 26 were unearned. So, I mean, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal, and there's no way the best teams in the world aren't going to overcome those types of things. It wasn't like, hey, look, those guys are good on the other side too, and they were able to do some things strikeout-wise that we weren't able to get in to offset some of those unearned runs and try to stymie some of those situations that we put ourselves in, and Salisbury was. So there was the difference. We gave up some unearned runs, and we weren't able to get out of it like we had in some games earlier in the year with the strikeout. But look, at the end of the day, we made some outfield mistakes. Leading up to the Salisbury game, we made some infield mistakes. And these were the first couple games maybe, where Brady and Greg didn't have their A game. At the end of the day, these guys have proven over the course of their careers, whether it's been here or somewhere else, that they are very capable, very talented pitchers. I don't expect anything different moving forward. We've had some hurdles to overcome. We've had a bunch of injuries. We've down to our 4th catcher, who's also our best outfielder. There's just been a lot of things over the last couple of weeks that have really gone against us, and it's reality, and it happens, and we just got to keep our heads above water and just keep working at it, and I believe that we can. I told the guys we were 1-3 going into whatever our next conference game is going to be at this point. We were the same place last year at 1-3. The difference between this year and last year is that this year's group is totally capable of bouncing back. You see, we went on a 10-game run or whatever, 11-game winning streak earlier in the year against good competition. That isn't any different than what we're going to face leading up, over the next 2 to 3 weeks. This group is very capable of bouncing back. They're very capable of handling the situation. We just got to kind of keep pushing and keep wading through it, and when we get these guys back, and fortunately, it looks like we should be here hopefully closer to full strength going into this weekend than we were last weekend. So that'll be a bit of a breath of fresh air. They talk about these guys at the July 31st trade deadline. Are we going to make a move? And some of the teams say, well, we got so and so and so and so coming back who've been gone for weeks, coming off the DL. That's the same as making the trade. So I think that, getting some guys back that have been hurt and just getting, hopefully, if we can get on some sort of consistent schedule here with practicing and playing, everything will come back around and we'll be okay. It's just a matter of, can we get going and find a way to stay out of our own way. And some of those things have just, led to our inconsistencies over the last week. And, got to clean the slate here and just try to go back to work today and try to build off of Thursday and focus on the positives, but use what we did wrong, try to focus on them the best we can, and try to improve upon them.
Well, that normal schedule doesn't look to be coming this week either. The snow that we have to endure again from last night has already caused havoc with your schedule this week. Another postponement of a doubleheader, which was supposed to be 2 conference games with Penn State Harrisburg. You're supposed to host York on Wednesday, and we'll see if that happens. We're looking at some rain on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Wesley for a doubleheader on Saturday, and we're supposed to see more rain on Friday. So the weather just playing all sorts of games with really the team's mindset in a way too, not knowing what's going on, and kind of going into this week. Right now, you're 1-3 in the conference. You're supposed to get 4, make it 5 conference games that can really bounce you back towards the top of that standings. How do you kind of approach the week as a whole, knowing what is potentially coming, and how do you keep your team in the right mindset?
Well, I think that first and foremost, we just have to try to work on taking care of our flaws and deficiencies as best we can. We can't control any of that stuff. As much as we want to try, as frustrating as it is, as gut-wrenching as it is for me, and feeling like you're constantly playing this game of musical locations and dates, the guys just have to let me worry about that.
Yeah.
And just do what we can to try and get better. Focus on their personal deficiencies and flaws, and let's try to improve upon them day in and day out with what the space and the time that we have available to us. By no means is it ideal. Is this the worst I think I've ever had to deal with here at Frostburg? Yeah, as far as not ever being outside this long and the 10-day forecast looking as poor as it looks. I guess the look at the bright side is the conference tournament's moved back about 3 weeks this year, so, maybe it gets better. In years past, we'd be headed into our conference tournament play here in about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So, the bright side is that it is a little bit later, so you have a chance to kind of get things right. But, it still doesn't make me feel any better. And this is a little bit uncharted territory. There's been plenty of things that I can reflect on in the past and try to look back and think, okay, how do we deal with this, or how have we dealt with that, and try to span it forward and let those guys know that, hey, I've been here before. There's a couple guys that have been here before, and this is what we do to overcome it. When you start getting uncharted waters, you just kind of, in my thing, it's kind of like going through a slump when you hit. You want to try to go back to the basics. You want to try to hit the ball back up the middle and just make sure your fundamentals, and you're trying to see the baseball and just hit a line drive back up the middle and just try to simplify things. And I think that over this next week, we just got to simplify things, and we got to get back on track from just being consistently 1 through 9 in the lineup and trying to get guys prepared to do that. Making sure that we can do what we can to try to get our infielders and outfielders prepared, and then just let those pitchers kind of get comfortable and get back to where we know that they're capable of, and let them do their thing, because they have been a group that have shown that they can be successful. And then hopefully when we get healthy here, so hopefully sometime this week, we can get back to as close to full strength as we can. And maybe that'll give us some energy and some enthusiasm and some renewed focus on things as well. So we just got to take care of our business and just keep moving forward. I don't know what else to say other than that, and just try to try to press on. And if we get improved weather and we can get ourselves going here, there's no reason that we can't start to climb back to where we know we're capable of. Right now, it just seems like we're kind of stuck in the mud or the snow or whatever other precipitation we may be stuck in. But look, for the next 4 weeks, we're just going to have to grind and try to find a way to win, the games that we should win. And then hopefully we can win a couple games that, maybe we're not supposed to win because of our circumstance or whoever we're facing. But we'll get ourselves right, and we'll figure it out, and we'll just press on and, just try to take it a day at a time and seeing if, what we can get out of each day and push that forward. And then maybe one day there'll be an actual game. So
well, hopefully
we prepare for that.
Hopefully those games can come this week. Supposed to be 3:45 on Wednesday at Bob Wells Field against York. Saturday, doubleheader against Wesley at noon at Bob Wells Field as well. Hopefully we get those games in. Hopefully we get to see you out on the field this week.
Well, and that doubleheader against Penn State Harrisburg is now scheduled for Sunday. So.
Oh, boy. Well, all right. There you go then. So hopefully we get some baseball this week. We'll find out later in the week. But
I sure hope so.
Well, if we do get some baseball, good luck to you and your team. Thanks for joining us, Guy Robertson, and we'll talk to you again next week. I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head softball coach Wes Landrum. Coach, a little bit of we'll call it a weather-shortened week for the Frostburg State softball team. You end up with a doubleheader, and that's it on Friday against Bridgewater. It was a little bit of a tough outing. The first game a 4-1 loss, second game a 11-5 loss. Let's talk about that first game first. And you and I were talking about it a little bit before we started here. Allison Short, she gave up the 4 runs, but she still pitched well. I think what can be taken away from this game is is the clutch hitting wasn't there, left a lot of runners in scoring, left a lot of runners out there, 7 runners left on base, and only scored the 1 run, just not having the clutch hitting right now to get those runs across.
Yeah, it's hitting's contagious, and I think sometimes when one hitter feels good, 4 or 5 do. Haven't had any consistency with what we're doing playing wise, so that affects us more. I think in games hitting wise, it's tough. We do live stuff here in practice, but facing your own pitchers who have faced you 15 plus times already this year, they know how to get you out, kind of thing, and it's helpful, but it doesn't create super game like situations. So yeah, I mean we several innings we had a chance to kind of bust it open and get a couple runs back, and we weren't able to. So.
That second game then, an 11-5 loss to Bridgewater, and kind of the opposite story in that game. You did have the 5 runs come across, which would have been enough to win that first game on 11 hits, but 14 hits given up on the defensive side, and you told me before we started just the pitching having trouble really at times getting out of jams.
Yeah, and it's there weren't a ton of hard hit balls against us. A lot of bloopers, a lot of seeing eye singles kind of thing, and those things happen. Second game we weren't able to kind of stop that crooked number from getting up on the board, and it's something we've got to work on and get better at for sure. But that won't last all season. The batting average of balls in play kind of thing is temperamental some weeks, and it wasn't for us on Friday for sure.
Well, and you kind of mentioned it there a little bit, the fact that stuff's kind of hard to do when we've had the situation that we've had in Frostburg this year, where you've been in the gym all year long, and we were talking about it too, that you haven't even gotten on your own field a single time yet this year to do anything. So, I mean, what really are the challenges of working? I mean, you're working in a gym where it's not your typical sort of flooring either. It's a rubber flooring. The ball takes all sorts of crazy hops on a rubber floor like that. It almost in a way simulates turf more than grass, but still not the same thing. It's what kind of struggles does that bring to you from a coaching standpoint to have to get these girls ready week in and week out without ever seeing dirt?
It's definitely very difficult. There's only so many things we can do inside. There's only so much space for which we can do it. I think the hardest part is for the girls is we play an outside sport, and we expect to be inside, typically that first month. Don't typically expect to be inside the entire month of March. This year we were. So, it's definitely a struggle. It's definitely hard to get creative some days, with the time and space that we have. It's tough to translate from practice to games when our surfaces are completely different. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going against us right now. They've done a fantastic job of grinding away with it and being very receptive to what we're doing. And, there's certainly light at the end of the tunnel. It's just, can't get here soon enough, hopefully.
Which part of the game do you think, with conditions like this, really does suffer the most, though? Is it the hitting? Is it the fielding? Is it the pitching? The base running? What is the hardest part to coach when you have a situation like this?
All the above. I mean, it's basically defense and base running. I mean, when we're in a main arena, I can't hit it over any outfielders' heads. The bases, it's tough to base run from a standpoint of, how far can we go? How far do we not have to go? But defensively, it's hard too because, there's no fence to stop a ball. So, sometimes if it ricochets, then we're chasing it, and then kids can take extra bases, which they can't really do in a game necessarily. But those simple things, I think, we can hit every day, we can pitch. Although the conditions aren't exactly the same, they're much more similar than defensively for sure.
Well, I think you can say that the hitting really doesn't. I mean, it suffers, but not anywhere near as much as the defense, the pitching, the base running. When you look at it right now from a statistical standpoint, your team is still hitting the ball extremely well. You have 7 players in your lineup hitting above 300. I mean, that's pretty impressive for the conditions you've had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we've got some very talented kids. And it's more about being able to recreate game-like situations, and that's where we're kind of failing a little bit this year.
Well, now we have a chance to get outside, maybe. this week. We've, of course, dealt with some snow. If anybody is, whenever you're listening to this, there was some snow Sunday night into Monday, and so again covered the field. And you get 3 games this week, 3 doubleheaders, 3 conference doubleheaders, or at least you're supposed to get 3. In the first one, Southern Virginia, that one should happen down in Buena Vista. That one shouldn't be much of an issue unless it is some rain. So first and foremost, that one coming up on Wednesday. What do you know about the Southern Virginia Knights, and what kind of games do you think that will be?
You know, Dan, right now it's just about us trying to figure out to put us in the best position to be successful. It's really less about every other team than it is more just about us. I'm not trying to not answer your question, but I'm wholly focused on making us better and trying to put our best foot forward right now.
And then the other 2 games that come up this week maybe happen depending on the weather here in Frostburg. Penn State Harrisburg and York. The other 2 matchups on Saturday and Sunday, both 1 o'clock doubleheader starts here in Frostburg. Let's take it instead of the 2 opponents, the outlook as a whole. You know what's coming potentially with the weather. You know that you're going to play down in Southern Virginia. What is your outlook as a whole for the upcoming week with these 3 opponents?
Consistency, you know, being able to get out on a regular basis, being able to sort of fix the things we need to fix, and you know, find consistency and rhythm in everything we're doing.
Wes Landrum, another great addition to the Bobcast. Thanks for joining us again this week.
Thanks.